Sitaram, once again we welcome you to another edition of SWA, carried exclusively on Sankhya TV. SWA being the principles by which we should live, which are heavily rooted in spirituality. Today we are going to deal with avoiding dangerous travel times, a very topical issue because up to May 15th this year in this country, there has been 40 road fatalities, averaging roughly 2 a week, which is much more than one would appreciate. But SVV has always, in their monthly calendar, made provisions for alerting our followers of risky times for travel. We have reached stage now, having gone through a couple of programs where the general population can now appreciate the relevance of the calculations. So we have now stuck them into the monthly calendar. Actually, they are in the section with the daily calendar. And there on the extreme right, in times to avoid, we will see popping up times to be particularly cautious in travel. So a major portion of risky travel times is predictable. And we'll put forward an example through SVV's research. But one must also appreciate that the remaining part that is, let's say, unpredictable in inverted commas, depends heavily on the individual's birth chart, something to which we may not have access to. But having access to it, one can really be deft in prediction of dangerous travel times. So we look at SVV's research, and I draw to the example here that look at Saturday, 13th August 2016. Of course, for obvious reasons, we have made the name obscure because we want to not offend anyone. And according to the astrological factors, these are the astrological factors here, the conclusion of these astrological factors, it's here. Avoid travel on that day between 1:07 a.m. and 9:37 p.m. Avoid travel. Yes, there was, unfortunately, the fatal accident occurring at 6:30 p.m. And the directions are also predicted. There are two directions that should have been avoided or be extra cautious with on those days. On that day, it would have been east and southeast. The accident occurred on the east to west Betham highway. So this is not an isolated research. We have the file here in manuscript where the students of SVV have done the necessary research and correlating the information that has been deduced and how it relates to certain incidents. So for this and other reasons, we have put up and included in the calendar the times to avoid for travel. So once one accesses the daily calendar, of course, SVVTT.com, one will see on the extreme right the times to avoid for travel. The prediction, as we have indicated in the opening slide, also depends on the person's individual birth chart, sometimes which we may not always have access to. The relevance of that is simply this. In Hindu astrology, and mind you, astrology has been handed from nation to nation in the history of time. So we should not really say in Hindu astrology. In astrology, the mathematicians and those rishis and munis were really sound in mathematics. They made the earth, they make the earth the geocentric to map the paths of the planets. And we are heading here now to what the relationship between the planets and inferences on journeys and trips. They have factored, the rishis and munis have factored the rotation of planets and their converse movement and formed a correlation with the journeys and that information. So they have done it like this very easily. And how is it translated in a person's birth chart? For instance, a person is born when these houses, or which is really the orbit of the planets at, let's say, at any given time, this was the time of birth, the GTT'S have already calculated 270 degrees to 300 degrees, which is about this area here, would be the point in time one has to have under the microscope. And normally, as we know from a Hindu background, that one's patra it's recommended to be read yearly. So for an upcoming year, a prediction could be made. Well, look, there will be risks in journeys. And then what do we do beyond that? Well, this is where we progress into the other slide. So we look at the benefits of choosing appropriate time for travel. For one, students, you avoid the hazard of arriving late, especially at exam time, through unforeseen circumstances. There might have been, God forbid, an accident on the road, etc. And so it's not in good stead to arrive late for an exam. And the general workforce, you avoid major accidents, minor accidents too, and even on leisure trips. Be it on the vacation period, people might be heading towards the beaches, people might be going on vacations abroad. By choosing the appropriate time for travel, we can avoid these things and maximize the benefits of choosing an appropriate travel time. So we look further, and let's look at some working examples here. On a Sunday, for instance, we have here on the current calendar, Sunday the 15th of July. We will notice, as we have begun the program by saying, we have included this section here in times to avoid. So it is said here, avoid traveling before 1:15 a.m. on this Sunday and between 6:02 p.m. and 10:26 p.m. And remember, on a Sunday, there might be occasions like a family get-together and so forth. What do we do? Let's just say it's going to be hosted within this hour. What do we do? If it's at 8 p.m., are we going to leave home at 6 p.m. and we have maybe a big time to while away? No. The recommendation is given here. Initiate travel between 7 and 8 a.m. on Sunday, meaning that if the person is driving towards the destination, take a driving permit, something which is important, which you cannot do without when you travel, and put it into the car between 7 and 8 a.m. Some people leave their driving permit in the car. Well, it's simple, take it out. And within that time, we put it back into the car. So something of consequence which is going to be used on the trip is called the initiating part of the trip, of the journey. So that is done. In the case of, let's just say it's a school child who might be attending some special class between that time. Well, again, between 7 and 8 in the morning, take one's stationery, maybe take a book that you're not going to use for the day, but you're going to use in classes, and put it in the vehicle of travel. And these are subtle moves because these are chosen travel times that nullifies the risks when we have to travel at certain risky times. This is a counter to it. Now we say here, assuming a sunrise of 6 a.m., we have done that bit in programs before, but quickly. Adjustments are made. If sunrise is 5:45, then the appropriate time on a Sunday morning to initiate travel by putting something of consequence in the vehicle will be between 7:15 and 8:15. So we have been in that calculation before. So this is for a Sunday. For a Monday, now these times to avoid travel is not for every Monday. It's based on the monthly calendar. So on Monday, 2nd of July, the extra caution of travel will be after 10:46 p.m. As we say, some people are probably heading out into foreign lands for vacation. The flight might well be midnight, 11 p.m. And what do? We can't change the flight departure. What we can certainly do is to initiate the travel movement at an appropriate time. And in the case of Mondays, and this is fixed, Just as for Sunday, one of the fixed times to initiate travel is between 7 a.m. and 8 a.m. So too on a Monday, our fixed good time for travel is between 11 a.m. and noon, of course, making allowances for sunrise. So, put probably the flight document, the flight ticket in the car, in the vehicle that we are going to depart with, and at the appropriate time, and then that will be taken care of. We come to Tuesday. On Tuesday, 24th July, we will see that the extra quotient of travel is after 5:51 p.m. Let's just say we are attending a meeting, or we have to attend a meeting, or we wish to attend a meeting, and it's after this time here. What do? On Tuesday, we initiate the travel between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. on the Tuesday. Now, we have taken for granted that we have access to a vehicle which will carry us to our destination of meeting, etc., etc. What if the person is going to travel? Well, within the homes itself, one just shifts into the direction of the destination, whatever is going to be taken, whether it is a document, whether it's a file, whether it's in the case of a student, whether it's a stationery, a book, as the case may be. That part of the information will be followed up in our next program, Shift in a Direction at Home, if we do not have a vehicle to access. Which direction? That will be dealt with in the following program. So everything is taken care of. We come to Wednesday now. The fixed time, one of the fixed times for initiating travel is between 5 a.m. and 6 a.m. And on Wednesday, 25th of July, the extra caution with travel is for the entire day. There are two options. How do we counter that? Ideally, which will be Tuesday in this case, the travel time is set there between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. So the option would be, one of the options would be to go back to Tuesday, but that could also be inconvenient, because if one is going to make a trip on Wednesday, to make the adjustments on Tuesday might be difficult. How do we balance it? Well, the entire day on Wednesday, 25th, is dangerous for travel. Well, at the travel time of 5 a.m. and 6 a.m., initiate the traveling methods spoken about, initiate it. It will not completely overhaul the risks for travel, but certainly one will be able to circumvent any major disasters. So we now move to Thursdays. One of the Thursdays times for ideal initiating travel is between 9 a.m. and 10 a.m. On Thursday, 19th July, we will see that one has to exercise extra caution of travel after 1:48 p.m. So let's say one has a dinner engagement, meeting for social reasons, for important reasons, and of course it's going to be night. We don't want to invite any untoward happenings. Accidents we are not prepared for it. That's why it's called an accident. So these things to cater for and other mishaps, we initiate travel between 9 and 10 a.m. So again, most times, as I say, we might be using our vehicle to go. At that point in time, we might be in work. So we go into work, we remove the driving point from the car, if we so leave it. If we don't, and it's with us, then between that time in work, just take a second, a minute or so, reach to the car and put in the driving permit within that time. On Thursday, that will take care for any engagements that we might run a risk after 1:48 p.m. So let's tarry a while. The maneuvers to avoid risk in travel, they are simple. They don't entail any kind of great amount of time. And once we stick to the parameters given here, which are really concrete laws of duties, we move to a Friday now. On Friday, 20th July, extra caution travel before 7:14 p.m. Of course, Friday is a day of events, most times recreational, and so that we will savor that bit of joy from the recreational activity, we want to make sure we avoid any risks in travel. So what do? Ideal time across the board for initiating travel on Friday is between 6 a.m. and 7 a.m. So Friday adjustments can be made like this. most times 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. might be the time before we leave home. So in the case of the person who is driving, it's not a difficult move to put the driving permit or whatever we might need for the evening engagement in the car within that time. And when we are ready to depart from home, so be it. But we have taken care and nullified a lot of the risks that could happen within the time where we have to exercise extra caution for travel purposes. Having said that, when there are certain undertakings within our ambit, for instance, we are endowed with the responsibility to convene a meeting, let's say, in the evening time, and we see 7:14 as the before that as the danger point. Possibly we can, if we can tweak the meeting, which will allow those within close range and most of the invitees to be able to leave home after 7:14 p.m. and still reach within a reasonable hour, let's say 8 p.m., and there we eliminate the risk totally. So when it falls within our ambit to set things, we need to go to SVVTT.com, pull up the daily calendar, watch all this on the right-hand side, because all these times to avoid affects meetings, events, etc. When we can sidestep them, and in addition, cater for those who are invited, then I think we are managing situations properly. The Jyotisis of Hinduism have always realized that it's not a selfish thing. We don't do things for ourselves alone. We all have to think about other people, and that's why they have stressed the importance of travel movements, not only to keep a degree of safety for ourselves, but for our fellow man too. So we move now to Saturday. Saturday is on Saturday 14th July, extra caution with travel after 7:39 p.m. And that's Saturday being a day of a lot of activities and so forth, especially in the night time. We should try to convene, if it's a birthday celebration, convene everyone, put the invitation out before 7 p.m. We don't want anybody starting a journey after 7:39 p.m. on a Saturday, like Saturday 14 July, where the necessary cautions are there for us to see. Ideal time, if unavoidably the event takes place after 7:39 p.m., ideal time, 10:30 a.m. to 11 a.m. would be the time to make that little maneuver, to initiate the travel, and so take the necessary steps to have the degree of safety that we all desire. Be reminded that when we initiate travel in whatever way, we have just indicated a couple examples with a driving permit, with a document, with a stationery at the appropriate hour. But if, and there have been occasions when the entire day is dangerous for travel, we cannot simply nullify it by this subtle move. So it needs to be complemented. Of course, we have to bring God into the picture. It needs to be complemented with select mantras. And before we go to those mantras, we have to, the best investment is the children. So on Monday, September 3rd, 2018, most schools will be reopening. A nice move would be the appropriate time for travel. It's a bit early. It's 4 to 5 a.m., given that sunrise might be 6 a.m. So the children don't necessarily have to be awakened at that hour. The parents get up early, some of them are up at that hour, and take the child's school bags and put it into the vehicle of departure. And in other words, we have started the first day on our trek to school, the children that is, at an appropriate travel time. And that will augur well for the kids. So we now move into the mantras. The mantras will number three sets of mantra, which we have shortened and made potent enough that when one wants to embark on any trip, it could be a routine trip, because accidents can happen There are accidents that can happen at any point in time, especially with the crowded roadways that we have in the country. So it is worthwhile, it is prudent to use these 3 mantras as we categorize them before we head out into a journey. First and foremost, Lord Ganesh. Simple mantra, Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Just a bit on that word gum. It's not gang, it's gum, it's Sanskrit. And the pronunciation is important because the daughter, the anuswar, the M sound actually carries a meaning, the remover of misery. So when we say gum, we are asking Ganesh, Ga for Ganesh, in his capacity to remove misery, to kindly so do as we make prostration to him. So Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha, very easy, short mantra. So we chant that mantra first. Then we have to chant a mantra relevant to the direction where we are heading, the final destination, whether it's east, northeast, north, etc. And each of these directions have prevailed over by certain manifestations of the Supreme. We dealt with this in a previous program, but we get into more detail here to show the relevance as far as journeys are concerned. So the second mantra will involve one of the 10 guardians of the various quarters who is positioned in our final destination. If we are heading east, it's Lord Indra. The mantra is Om Shri Indraya Namaha. And the rishis and munis wrote with such capacity, with such wit, that though it's a travel mantra we are saying, the mere structure of the mantra in Sanskrit, we say Chaturthi Vibhakti, in the 4th declension, carries weighty meanings. Indradev, well, God is infinite and his finite parts occupies this temple, the body. And Indradev, the Lord of Celestials, the very Indra, who governs the easterly direction, sits on the hands of the individual. So apart from seeking the blessings of Indradev because we are entering his home, the eastern region, we also pay cognizance to the fact of that, or to that Indradev who sits on the hands of every individual. So we make prostration to him too, Om Shri Indraya Namaha. Not only do we appeal to Indra as the custodian of the eastern quarter, as the deity who sits on the hands, but also remember, in one round of creation, Indradev was a projection of Surjanarayan Swami. He is one of the 12 Adityas, and which reminds me that in possibly the last program, inadvertently, we had referred to the 12 Adityas as projections of Bhagwan Shiva. We all know, I think having followed program after program, the 11 Rudras are projections of Bhagwan Shiva and the 12 Adityas are projections of Surjanarayan Swami. Suffice it to say that Indradev, that simple, deft mantra, Om Shri Indraya Namaha, covers all those territories. We move now to if the destination is northeast, north or northwest. In the case of northeast, it's that projection of Bhagwan Shiva known as Ishana, and the mantra is Om Shri Ishanaya Namaha. If the direction is north, like we are living from San Fernando to Herrick, Port of Spain to work, school, etc., we pay cognizance to Kuver Devata, Om Shri Kuver Devaya Namaha. Kuver is the chief of the Yakshas, a category of deities who are so important that a representative sits on the chariot of Surjanarayan Swami each month. And Kuver, needless to be reminded, is also the god of wealth. He works in tandem under the supervision of Mother Lakshmi, very important. And if the destination is northwest, there comes the father of Hanuman Baba, Pavandev, Vayu Devata. He sits on the northwesterly direction of any piece of land on any country. Vayu Devata, these devatas all sit in those directions. Om Shri Vayave Namaha. If the direction is west, Varun Devata, the god of waters, Om Shri Varunaya Namaha. It is also a good practice that if we are going on a beach outing, on a river outing, it is always good, though we may not be going in the direction of west, it is always good before we leave, add on this mantra. Make it 4 mantras before travel. Face the west and make prostration at home to Varun Devta, who is the master of the waters. If the final destination is southwest, Niriti Devi, very interesting. She's a representative of the Rakshas kingdom. But like there's an element of good in everything that is bad. In every person that is bad, there's an element of good. That's a given. Niriti Devi gives her positive input, sent from the Rakshasas, as she sits in the southwesterly direction. And of course, if it's on the south, it's Yamraj, Om Shri Yamaya Namaha. In the case of southwest, Om Shri Niriti Divyai Namaha. Obviously, we have, so those are the 8 directions. We have up above, governed by Brahmaji, the creator, mantra being Om Shri Vidhati Namaha. So those who are in flight and take flights and so forth, we pay obeisance to that form of God Brahma. And we don't have them here, but when we are subterranean, when we're like in the subways, underground, we pay obeisance to Anantadev. So the mantra will be Om Shri Anantaya Namaha. So if we're in foreign lands and we're using the subways to get from town to town, that would be a nice mantra to put into, directional mantras. So we have Ganesh Bhagwan, we have the guardian of the very quarter, and last but by no means least, we should with reverence take the name of Sri Ram Chandra. Ramayana, particularly Sundarakand we are referring to here. The statement was made there, Pravishi Nagar ki jai sabakaja, Hriday rakhi kushal puraraja. For successes in any journeys, as we enter towns, as we enter foreign lands, it is said, bring the name of Kushal Puraraja, bring the name and the form and what he represents. That very Sri Ram Chandraji, who in this context is Raja Ram, King Ram. Bring Raja Ram into the mind, and that will fashion and mold, or it ought to fashion and mold how we go about our journey, how, having reached our destination, how we make our maneuvers, how we manage situations according to how Sri Ram would have done it. And there were 2 features of the Raghukul, Pranajai, Parivartanajai, always let the word be the bond. We don't have to necessarily should sign a document to hold our word, to hold us to word. Our word should stand as steady as the mountains. And in addition to the Sri Ramchandra always looked after, King Ram always looked after his subjects. When we go out to the journeys, we must consider people as our dependents, where we can be of some sort of help to them, some support to them, and in that way, keeping these 2 major aspects of the character of Shri Ram, of King Ram, then definitely our journeys will be successful. Once again, we thank you on behalf of Sankhya TV for joining with us. Today we spoke in part about being cautious with travel times, which are stated on the calendar, carried to you exclusively on Sankhya TV. Sitaram.